Welcome to the 7th episode of the DIH Talks. My name is Ivan, I'm support officer at the Luxembourg Digital Innovation Hub. And for today's topic, we have risk governance in operational technology. So please welcome our speaker, Anita Arul Rajakumar, cybersecurity consultant at the Luxembourg House of Cybersecurity. And just before we begin, I would like to bring your attention to the question tab in the chat. Feel free to drop your question there anytime. We will address them at the Q&A at the end of the session. And so, up to you, Anita.
Thank you, Ivan. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining this session. We are here to discuss about risk assessment for OT using MONARC. Before that, I'll quickly introduce myself. I'm Anita Arul Rajakumar. I work in the National Cybersecurity Competence Center, NC3, which is part of LHC. I have close to 12 years of experience in cybersecurity, but I'm fairly new to OT. Okay. So today's agenda, we will talk about a little bit about what the EDIs are, E-D-I-H, and what services L-DIH offers. Then I'll briefly introduce what NC3 does and what are the services we have. Then we'll move on to the risk assessment and how we can use an open source tool called MONARC to do it. So for listeners who have already attended the L-DIH webinars, you might already know what E-D-I-H is. So European Digital Innovation Hubs, these are established across EU in different countries and in different numbers. In Luxembourg, we have one L-DIH. So in total, there are 254 EDIHs across EU. So why are these established is to help SMEs to improve on the digital maturity. Why focus on SME? That is a good question because we also see a lot of cyber attacks directly targeting SMEs. So this is one of the European initiatives to help support, bring national resilience by improving the digital maturity and cybersecurity maturity of SMEs. So in Luxembourg, we are 5 consortium members who are part of this L-DIH initiative. As you may see, LHC is also one of the members. Apart from this, we have the national agency, which is Lux Innovation, University of Luxembourg, LIST, which is Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology, along with the Competence Center from University of Luxembourg. So what kind of activities we do would be more on the awareness. We have events, we have awareness sessions. We also organize events where you can meet your industrial peers. For the services that we offer, these are free or there is no invoice or no administrative procedure. How we have been able to achieve this is because it is co-funded by the European Union and the Ministry in Luxembourg. So hence we are able to provide our services free of cost, especially targeting to the manufacturing industries in small and medium enterprises. So what are the services that we have is assessments, which is digital maturity assessments and cybersecurity assessments, which in normal cases would be very expensive to avail. Then we also have skills and trainings. Along with this, we have technology testings and awareness sessions. So L-DIH Talks is one of these awareness sessions that we do. We also have sessions on fundings. So the next few slides, these services are categorized into assess, fund, test, and train. So I will quickly focus on the assessments. So we have light cybersecurity assessment and deep cybersecurity assessment. So moving on to a quick introduction about Luxembourg House of Cybersecurity. We host all the cybersecurity related activities here in Luxembourg. So we are split into 2 entities here with 2 departments, I would say rather. One is the National Competence Center, which I am part of. So our activities are more on building competence and capability in the cybersecurity domain. We also do research and innovation. We also work on market intelligence, which is the observatory platform that we have. Our colleagues in the circle, they work on services which are post-incident or during incident. So they also have a lot of open source tools which can help you during your incident or post-incident, or also to avoid the incident happening. So part of this project, the two services that we have is Light Cybersecurity Assessment and Cyber Value Pack. So in the Light Cybersecurity Assessment, what we do, it's a self-guided online assessment where you answer up to 28 questions, which takes about half an hour. So this gives you an idea of what is your cybersecurity maturity, and you also are able to identify what vulnerabilities you have. So this will give a good overview of the maturity for an SME. We have used IEC 62443 for this assessment. So all your mappings are done according to this standard, which is specific to the manufacturing industry. That's how it distinguishes from the existing questionnaires that are available, because most of them are aligned to 27001 and not 62443. In this project, we aligned it to 62443. And the next service that we have is Cyber Value Pack. There are 3 services in this. One talks about the training awareness for the team. So we also provide cybersecurity training for an entire team. So during our assessments, what we have realized is most of the organizations do not have cybersecurity specific on trainings, or during the onboarding, these things do not happen, especially in the SMEs. So this service definitely adds value, because we all know that people are the first line of defense, and to enable people to be more cyber aware, this training definitely helps. You also have an option where you could train one of your employees. So that would be train the trainer module, where one of your employees can be trained, and you could do this on a regular basis in your company by yourselves. The next one would be Room 42, which is a cyber crisis simulator. So in this, it's a 4-hour session. 5 to 8 employees can come together and experience what a cyber attack would look like, and how are you able to respond. How is this different from other services would be, it is a simulator, but it is also in a room where the light and sound is configured. So with this setup, your responses are much faster. You'll be way more stressed than your normal environment. So this helps you realize you may have a lot of plans, but during the crisis, how do you react? And post this exercise, the directors generally give you a big recommendation and what they have observed. So that way it is helpful, because not all of us, it's very, for people who come from the cybersecurity environment, you already know we do tabletop exercises, but this is more live and simulated. So it helps you see where your responses are and how we can improve our responses during crisis. The next one is testing platform. Here, specific to this project would be you can test your IoT firmware, and the rest you can also check vulnerabilities on your application websites, even on email addresses. So all of these services are open source and free. Room 42 is generally a paid service, but apart from that, the training material and everything would be available on the NC3 website that you can look at. Okay, now delving into risk assessments. So why risk assessment? I think we all are already fairly aware of why we need to do risk assessments. So in OT, this risk assessments would help us identify and mitigate what threats we see and vulnerabilities we see. Another important factor would be it would help us prioritize our investments, because as cybersecurity professionals, we already know we work with a limited budget. And when we know what is a high priority or what is more risky, high risk, we are able to focus on these vulnerabilities and fix them so that we eventually don't have a security incident. And in the OT space, what are the challenges that we have? So there is like in comparison to IT. So I come from an IT environment. So when I see this, what we have is there's lack of standardization. It's not so simple to do a risk assessment here. There's also complexity in the environment, and the visibility of assets is not fairly simple. It's also difficult. And the next part is skills. So if we look at this one, these devices were not built with security in mind. So the maturity of security in these devices are low, and it complicates the risk identification for us. There is no unified standards or protocols. There is a huge variety of protocols that are used. So again, this poses as a challenge for us. And because the plants are so large, the devices are distributed across regions, and having a visibility is something that during my assessments I've realized that it's not as easy as what we think to have. So all of these things at the end of the day becomes very challenging. And when we were doing assessments, what we realized is we need a methodology or a platform where we can collaborate across professionals to start doing risk assessments. And hence, we came to an idea to look at MONARC. MONARC has been used since a couple of years, I think since 2013. It has been there, but mostly in the IT platform. It was not used for OT. And how do I see this tool advantages for us is it would help build a community because it is open source. You can share your assets, your threats, your vulnerabilities that you have identified. And for an SME who is small and starting out new, does not have a lot of professionals in the organization, they can utilize this repository and use the same model and perform risk assessments. So, like I was saying, it is both methodology and a tool that can be used. It is open source, so you have a community, you can upload your assets, and it is based on 27005. But okay, I also spoke about 62443, but here I'm saying 27005. We can also add referentials. So I have been working on mapping the referentials, and you should soon see it on the platform. So that way, even for the compliance perspective, whatever assessments that you perform, you're able to map to 62443 to see where you stand. And it also reduces the time and effort. So in most of these companies, what we see or what we observe is you do not have a risk professional or a dedicated IT person, maybe someone who manages two roles. So in those situations, this would be a good option, which is cheap but also expensive. Cheap but also efficient. Sorry, my bad. So moving into MONARC, MONARC is nothing but method for optimized risk analysis. So the first step here would be to establish context. Just like how we do in other risk assessments, we establish the context. Then we do context modeling. We post this, we do evaluation of treatment of risk, and then we implement the controls that we decide. So if I dwell deep into each step, so when we establish context, we are going to look at the scope, what we want to take, what is the context, what are the trends and threats that we see for this particular scope, and what is the kind of risk management organization we have. So in larger organizations, of course, you have a very large team who you can include, but for smaller companies, this would be a place where you can decide on what or how you can organize your risk management. And then we can delve into risk evaluation criteria. Once you do all of these 4 steps, you have a deliverable, which is downloadable. You can take it and share it with your team. So that deliverable is called context validation. Then we move on to the next step, which is context modeling. Here you identify all your assets, and the vulnerabilities and impacts can be defined at this place. But if you're using MONARC, you already have the vulnerabilities and impacts mapped. So that is an inheritance that you could get. And in case there are certain things that are specific to your environment, you can always add those vulnerabilities and impacts. After this step, we have another downloadable that is called model validation. So these deliverables help us share it with our management and also keep them on track on how the risk assessment is progressing. After this, we look at what are the treatment plans, how can we treat these risks, and post this, you also have a final report that can be used. And as a continuous process, we all know risk assessment is going to be continuous. So as you implement controls and you reduce your risk, you can still have a continuous update of your risk analysis, and a deliverable with the implementation plan is also available. So this is the link. So monarch.lu is where you can find all the documentation. We also have trainings which is uploaded. So you can go to GitHub and download and configure. You can have an instance for yourself. This is fairly a short webinar, and in 1 hour to do a complete risk assessment would be difficult. So I would like to utilize this session to give you a brief idea of how we can do it in this tool. And post this session, I think all of us can go back and try and use our existing risk analysis or begin a new one and see how it goes. And if there are any questions or anything, you can always write back to us and we'll be happy to collaborate. And it is open source, so feel free to upload your assets and threats, vulnerabilities, what you identify. So here you can give your email ID and password and log in. And post login, there is a tab on the left side where we click create risk analysis. And then one particular thing about this tool is the tool has a language and the risk assessment has a language. So it is translated in a lot of languages. So please ensure you select the good language that you're using. So the tool can be in English, but you're doing the assessment in French. That's possible. That's exactly what happened when I was trying to build the assessment. I didn't keep in mind. But yeah, when you create the risk analysis, ensure the language is English if you're an English speaker. So in this, you have an option to select the model. So modeling cases is the model that is established by NC3. NC3 used to be called cases, so we still have the name as modeling cases. So in this, the model is already defined. You can use this and use this for the assessment. But if you want to create a new model, that is also possible. So you can utilize a blank model will be the option. Use that. If you already have risk analysis done, you can also import that risk analysis and start your assessment here in this tool. So you fill a name, you give a description, you can add the referentials that you want to look at. So for people in Luxembourg, if you're aware, for NIS2 transposition, it is the tool Serima is taken from MONARC. So for all the users who already use MONARC Serima, the module is from here. But for others who are new to the platform, NIS2 will also come up here. We would also like to work and bring up more referentials here. And it's open source. So if anybody wants to specifically contribute a referential, that is also possible. So after you click all of this, you can hit create, and then it will give you the first step where we start doing risk analysis context. So if you're a risk professional and you're not familiar with these terms, you can always click on I button here, which will give you an idea of what needs to be filled into this. So for an example, I have given what we could fill. So these are the general considerations. What approach you want to follow, what is the scope. So all of that can be filled here. And then always remember, after every step, click on save so that it gets saved. And on the top of the tool, you have a progress bar. So it will also show you how much you have done. And there is a place where you can check mark, like a checklist. You can say, yes, this step is over. And when we move to the next one, it's about trends, threats, and how to the summary of it. So in this part, in trends, what we are trying to do is we have given questions which help you build the context about the company. So what does the company do? What is the business process? What is important? What are the assets? Have they had attacks before? What kind of security incidents they have had? So all of that you can fill in here. So as a risk professional, you also get more visibility about the company and what is important. If you feel there are some questions that you generally ask to your client and they are not listed here, you can always add a new question. So this gives you the idea of the company. The next part is the threat. So we have predefined threats that are given. So each threat, you have a description. You can also write comments about it. The impacted criteria is already set. So if you, for in this example, if you see compromise of functions, if you see the impacted area is all three, C, I, and A: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. You also can mark the trend. So is it positive or negative, or it's neutral? And for each threat, you do this and save and move to next. So you can, so in this example, you can see 1 out of 30 mentioned. So you have 30 such threats that you can do. And these threats you can also add in the knowledge base to say anything specific for the particular asset that you see or the environment that you see. After this, you have a small summary. So in the summary, just like I was talking before, here additional information will give you certain question or guiding points that can be used to create your summary. The next step is we talk about the organization for the risk management team within the company. So how is your organization? What are the roles and responsibilities? In case of conflict, how do you resolve? In case of escalation, whom to escalate? Those kind of information is something we can fill here. So it's a textbook. It is free text. You can fill the text here. You also have an option to make it bold, like a heading, or italicize, and all of that. So this is an example that I have filled. But when I did this, it was a large organization, so I've written a lot of things. But when you look at an SME, probably you may not have all of this in place. So if you have an audit, whatever information is available, you could write. But it also gives you an idea of certain things that are missing can be included. So just to give an idea there. Moving on to the next one, it is the evaluation criteria. So this is different for each company. So you can have different levels. So in this example, I have 0 to 4. So you can write about the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and how the consequences would look like. So this is usually when you work in an organization, you have this defined, and you can just import that here. After this, we have likelihood and vulnerability scale. So this scale is also specific to an organization. So if in your organization you already have, you just change the levels here. Maybe you do 5 levels or you do 3 levels. So that can be defined on the top. And you can also edit the text in a way which is more familiar to you. The bottom part, if we see, it's the acceptance threshold. Here we talk about the levels. So there are 3 different colors that you see: green, orange, and red. And the 8 acceptance is the maximum of the particular level. So in green, if you see, the maximum is 8, hence we have mentioned 8 here. The next one is 27. So orange, the highest is 27. These numbers vary from organization to organization. So you can use or feel free to adjust it according to your organization. So it gives you the chart in as per your scales. So risk, the formula used is impact, threat, and to vulnerability. So all of this is customizable. You can edit at any point in time for your risk analysis. Once all of this done, we have completed all the 4 steps of context establishment. And then this is the document that you can download. So like I was saying before, this is more useful so that you can share it with your management and other professionals so you can contribute together to develop the deliverable. Moving ahead to the objects that we have here, there is an inheritance model. So the assets that you have, you classify them as primary and secondary. And in primary, you can link it to say these are the secondary assets that could be linked with this particular primary asset. And each asset, you have a type. Now, in this example, this is completely IT. Similarly, you can also establish it for OT. It can also be global asset or a local asset. So why this helps is when you define these assets, if it is across departments or across entities, the same asset can be used, and the impact of each risk level is inherited depending on the assets that you have. So for each asset, you can also define the threat and vulnerability. Again, here I've given an IT example. So for each asset that you have, you can do this and this will be used. So the next step that we have in this is to identify our assets. So you have an asset library that is available. You can use the same. The heading of the asset, say it is department, it may not be very specific. So I would say you should rename it to say probably HR department or finance department. So you can always edit the asset name and make it more customizable for your environment. And what I would suggest, or a tip here, is do not directly use any of these assets. Try to duplicate them before you make changes. So that in case if there's an error or something, you still have the good asset which is available in the asset library and you can always utilize. Or in case if there is an error, you can always download from the asset library fresh to use the original asset. So after you add your assets, you can do an edit on the impact. So you look at the threat, you look at the vulnerability and see what is the kind of impact you will have on all three, C, I, and A. And after this, if you already have existing controls in place, you can start filling the existing controls. You can understand the current risk. Then you can plan your treatment, what kind of treatments you will do. And then you can also fill in your residual risk. So all of this happens here. And once all of this is filled, you can also import or export. If you already have a risk analysis, when you import it, you will have all of this filled. So this also can be shared within the team, so you can work together in a collaborative way. So for the IT, we already have referential, so you can already look at the asset, the threats, the vulnerabilities, the impact that can be there. So you also have that available in the library. But for the environment that you're working in, it is important that you take time, look at each one and fill it. So it's a one-time effort in the starting, but later on it becomes more iterative and it's more easier to work along. The tool is user-friendly, so it's easier for you to navigate, have assets. So at a given point in time, you're able to see what are the risks, and there is also dashboard options available, so you can use it here. In case you have any questions while navigating, please feel free to drop an email. I can definitely respond back. So I've included one small case study here, just to say how we can think about the context establishment and modeling. So if you take a manufacturing company having an automated production line, what is the key activities that you identify? What are the key processes? What could be the threats like ransomware or equipment failure, unauthorized access? What are the vulnerabilities, which is like an outdated firmware, weak network segmentation, lack of employee training? So these are few examples that I've given to give you an idea of what context establishment looks like. Then I've also given examples for asset. So what are the primary assets? What could be the secondary asset? What is the dependency? And then I've also included one scenario where we say, okay, there's a ransomware attack on SCADA server. What is the likelihood of this happening? What could be the impact? And what is the risk treatment? So this gives an initial idea of how this can be done. And I think when we work in larger organizations, you have a lot more things to fill. It's not as easy or simple to write, but what we wish to see is this tool being adopted and being a good open source community, because I think across a lot of discussions, what we realize is to improve the national resiliency. At some point, we all need to start collaborating and working together. So we hope this platform helps us improve cybersecurity in the region. So I've also added one slide with the links which I've spoken about. And that's it from me. So if you have any questions, you can drop in the chat and we can answer.
Thank you very much, Anita. This was a really insightful presentation. We have no questions in the chat. Yeah, so I think I could say thank you very much for joining. And yes, like if you scan this QR code, you will land on our event page where you can register for all our future events. Next, we have a Test Before Invest workshop on predictive maintenance. It's on the 19th June, and the next DIH Talk episode is episode number 8 on rapid IoT prototyping, and this will be on June 20. Yeah. So thank you very much for coming, and for I hope we see us in our future webinars, and have a great day. Thank you.